Well, this year in news has taken us all on a wild ride of emotions and revelations, from outbreaks to the Olympics, from the spread of terror to the rise on the thermostat, and to a political drama unlike one that we have ever seen. 2016 had every type of headline that you could think of. And covering it all from the anchor desk is Lisa LaFlamme, CTV National News' chief anchor and senior editor. Thanks for being here this morning.
It's such a treat to be here, and great to see you. I've been loving the show. That's one of the upsides of 2016.
Thank you.
So we've been up early watching.
I appreciate it. Hey, before we get started, too, I want to say congratulations on your Order of Ontario.
Thank you very much.
Big accomplishment.
It's a great honor.
All right, we want to start with number 10. What kicks off the list for CTV News?
Well, first of all, I just want to say what a challenge it is for us every year, because so many stories should be on that list, and we really fight and wrangle over which ones are going to make it, because, you know, these are like our babies. You cover them inside and out, and it's really hard at the end of the year to decide which one doesn't make it. So number 10 this year is the year the music died. I think we were all impacted by, early in the new year, David Bowie's death, Prince dying, Leonard Cohen, of course, which was just such a loss, and he's just given so much to this country. And, you know, I think that really impacted so many people, the deaths of these superstars.
Such a huge loss for so many people, and people said they felt like they were losing some of the soundtrack to
absolutely, especially David Bowie for me.
You're a huge music fan.
A huge music fan, and I think I'm still listening to every version of Hallelujah that I can get my hands on, just in honor of Leonard Cohen and everything he gave to this country and the world, really.
All right. Moving on to number 9, Zika virus.
Zika virus, obviously that is something that, you know, impacted. Look at the number of babies born with microcephaly has just skyrocketed in parts of the world. This is something that's also going to carry us right into 2017, because we don't really know the impact of this. But look at how it impacted the Olympics, for example. Athletes saying they weren't comfortable going. Even for CTV, there were producers who said, I'm not so sure, you know, given the uncertainty of this, whether I should be going and covering the Olympics. Like, it really did have a lot, and now Florida and Texas. So, you know, this is one that's going to take us into the new year, as so many of these actually do.
This is hard to believe, given number 8 is we had the warmest year on record.
We did. I mean, impossible when you think it's -10 outside right now. -20 in some parts. But yeah, it's true. You know, the Arctic has warmed up 3 degrees, twice as fast as the world average. This is something, again, and the focus 1 year ago was the Paris Accord. So the world is focused on climate change, but a lot of uncertainty on how committed politicians in the world really are on this issue. So again, it's something we watch.
Staying with politicians and and the government, we're taking a close look at First Nations affairs. Those really came into the spotlight this year. Lots of conversations online, in papers, and, you know, the conversations opened up in people's living rooms, sometimes for the first time.
100%. And, you know, you think of one of the big impacts of this year, finally an inquiry into the missing and murdered. This is something that has impacted us on so many levels. But also, I think personally about that concert Gord Downie gave in August, and
so
how
emotional.
One concert really did sort of force this into the public consciousness, almost more than government after government. So this is something that we hope is going to be progress, the relationship between our First Nations communities and the government. Again, we'll see some of the key recommendations still to be looked at and implemented, but progress, I guess, is the word for that.
Number 6 was Brexit.
Brexit. Wow. Brexit, I think, ushered in this sea change in the relationship between politicians and the public. It was really the largest democratic exercise in British history, and it was a shocker when you think of the outcome. We were up all night that night because the results were coming in. I remember literally at 7 o'clock that morning, and I had not slept, and just being in shock, as so many were in the UK, on how this narrow victory for Brexit. But it really was the first sort of example we've seen of these populist governments making change.
Number 5, a big one for anybody who watches Parliament Hill, as I know you do very closely.
Number
Legislation
5.
around assisted dying.
Oh, wow, what a story this has been. You know, I was looking just in researching for this morning. Do you know that this year, since this legislation came into being, which took only 3 months, by the way, incredibly fast, 600 Canadians have had assisted death this year alone. That's about 20 a day. So clearly this has exposed a deep division in the country on lots of levels. And again, it's something that we look around the world and we see that Canada is sort of ahead from many countries on moving forward with this legislation and the debate that ensues every time you're anywhere and this subject comes up. You know.
We're only at number 4, and I can't
Number 4.
already believe all the topics that have formed all our conversations in the last year. This has been called the Year of Terror.
Well, right up until last night in Berlin, which was a mirror image, actually, of what happened in Nice in July. We've seen so many tragic cases of terrorism. And, you know, the frightening thing is these attacks really are immediately exploited to pull people to the anti-immigrant side, which is something I think we all have to be aware of as we're watching this. These are the acts of madmen, and we have to keep that in perspective. But it's been a tragic year, and you look at Iraq and Syria and the terror attacks there sometimes get lost, you know, when you put them side by side with a Nice or a Berlin or, you know, Istanbul airport. It's just been another, and Orlando. You know, you think of 2016, the events that have shaped this year, and I get it. It's really hard to be optimistic for people at times, but I guess we have to force ourselves to realize, again, these are the single acts of madmen.
All right, for number 3, we're going to come back home. This list personally affected so many Canadians. Talking about Fort McMurray.
Your home province.
Yeah,
also,
out
isn't
in
it?
Alberta.
You know, this really was a tragic story, what happened, the images that just drove this story and the people as they're rushing down that highway to safety. But I think what it exposed, and one of the things we should focus on, is the outpouring of support from not just Albertans, but people right across the country. Particularly this year, it's been a tough year for Alberta. And then this happening, we saw the public galvanize and show really what we're made of when it comes to helping our neighbor. And, you know, as these people are now getting back into their homes, their Christmas, just again, we saw such beautiful acts of kindness from the rest of the country in trying to help them get through what must have been a terrifying time.
We have just 1 minute left to get through number 2 and number 1.
Oh, no, we need more time.
I don't know how you wrestled between these two. Syria ended up in number 2 spot.
Well, this was a big debate. Actually, I think when we get to number 1, we'll discuss that. But Syria, obviously, this has been a 6-year civil war, 300,000 estimated deaths. The last few weeks, the evacuations, the end game, if you will, for Aleppo. It is an international diplomatic failure on any level, I would say. That we've watched this happen, and it's been compared to the Rwandan genocide, and it's not over yet, you know, and now they get out of Aleppo, they go to Idlib. What's next on that front? Just a tragic story all around.
All right, we promised number 1 before the segment ended, and that is?
Number 1, okay, so I said there was much debate. Obviously, Syria is such a heartbreaking, horrifying story. But really, around the table, for those of us who make the decisions, Donald Trump had to be number 1. I mean, just the seismic change, the shock, the campaign trail, the controversies, what came out of his mouth, what ended up in his Twitter feed. And then on election night, again, that was another all-nighter. 3 o'clock in the morning, he stepped up to a microphone and, you know, Hillary Clinton had conceded defeat. And now it's absolutely official after yesterday's Electoral College rubber stamp. So, you know, we have no idea what this is going to look like the next 4 years. It's been an unpredictable campaign. It was an unpredictable night. The relationship with Canada, which is something we've all pride ourselves on, that Canada-U.S. relation. Who knows, with trade talks and climate change, there are so many unknowns. That's kind of been Donald Trump's brand, and we're going to see where that takes us into 2017. But, you know, I say this every end of year, but stay tuned.
Yeah.
But I think one thing I just want to say, one thing this has exposed is maybe a lack of grace in the world and maybe a lack of humanity. And that's one thing I hope when people look at the top 10 and they look, what does this mean to me and my life? We look forward and hope we can sort of dig down and find some grace as we move forward into the new year, you know?
A trigger towards some goodness.
Hopefully.
All right, Lisa, pleasure to have you here. Thanks for being
Great
here
to
today.
have you.